Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rabbi Abraham Cooper, the Associate Dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. And among my other responsibilities is 21 years ago, I started a project called Digital Hate. On September 11th, 2001, our Digital and Hate project morphed into Digital Terrorism and Hate. For the last 18 years, we've been putting out an annual report in the DVD format. This is our 2016 report. And as you can see from the establishing visual on the cover, this visual was not created by our very creative designers at the Simon Wiesenthal Center Museum of Tolerance. This is lifted off directly from one of the multitude of Islamist online magazines, the types of which that taught the Boston Marathon bombers how to take a pressure cooker and make it into a bomb. Obviously today, with the issue involving encryption and the still unresolved debate between the United States government and Apple over the San Bernardino murderer's cell phone, part of the report, in a minute I'm going to ask our senior researcher, Rick Eaton, to take you through a snapshot of our report, is we will show you how the terrorists themselves, extraordinarily sophisticated, extraordinarily motivated, how they are telling their own supporters in real time what to avoid. As you see the quote up there that basically says, just as a mujahid does not enter the battlefield without his iman or faith and his weapon, you must not exchange correspondence without encryption. So the 2016 trigger word for us is encryption. This was a decision we made weeks before we ever heard of the Apple FBI dispute. But one very important factor that we want to emphasize is that from the first day of our research project, we have always taken the approach that we're never going to get any progress unless we can get the cooperation of the collective genius that we call the Silicon Valley. I think that we have a distinguished member of Congress here. She will say her views directly. But the real goal here is to get the companies, who, especially the social networking companies, who are front and center to all marketing in the world today and to much of the communication, is to get them involved in helping us with technological responses to what we find. Now, you can see here that we have a report card for 2016, and just to show you over here, we regularly meet with Facebook, Twitter, Google, and YouTube. I was just with Twitter 2 weeks ago. And basically, we have good news and bad news. First, the good news. The social networking giants, led by Facebook, are beginning to take the issue of online terrorism much more seriously. Facebook's been there a while. What I mean by that is, Facebook has teams of people on 3 continents looking every single day on their own at what's going on the internet and removing a ton of stuff. The problem or the challenge for Facebook is they have over 1.5 billion separate pages. So their grade in combating terrorism is an A-, but in hate, there's way too much that they allow to go through. Twitter, who 2 years ago we gave an F to. We met with Twitter 2 weeks ago, and for many reasons, I think the return of their CEO and the threats made against Twitter by the Islamist groups, Twitter, I think, has made now a decision that they no longer want to be the weapon of choice for international terrorism. That means that we expect in the coming months a significant drop in the amount of tweets sent out by terrorist groups. You want to know what we're talking about? In October, at hearings on Capitol Hill to the National Security Subcommittee, Homeland Security official confirmed that ISIS was sending out 200,000 tweets a day. And that served, I think, as a wake-up call that enough is enough. So they're significantly moving in the right direction. However, when it comes to hate speech, hate hashtags, etc., Twitter has done very, very little. And as a result, you see the dichotomy in the grades, with Google, YouTube getting a B- on terrorism and a D on hate because they've yet to really tackle the issue. Very quickly, I want to bring your attention to the last three companies we have here, which are the messaging apps, Telegram, Kik, and SureSpot. As Rick will show you, Telegram has taken off significant amount of material. It's a very, very powerful tool because it combines a lot of the social networking with the capability of getting live feeds. And he'll explain in detail how that's being used. Kik and SureSpot are two apps that allow you to create to cloak your conversations and maybe even see them disappear in a relatively short period of time. The bottom line is, since the whole direction is going towards encryption, if the companies don't do something about that will both enable them to protect the privacy of legitimate communications and citizens, but give some way for court-ordered access to Homeland Security, FBI, ATF, local NYPD, and elsewhere, we are quickly entering the time of flying blind against terrorism. And so the bottom line is, the Wiesenthal Center has always believed that the collective genius in Silicon Valley can help us minimize the new rules and laws that will be passed otherwise if they step up and do the right thing. So for a moment, if I ask Rick if he'd come here just for a minute, you can come up and quickly run through the first section, and then we'll ask Congressman Maloney to join us.
So this is Al Rasala magazine. This is actually the one that relatively new magazine, the one that our cover image came from. It's actually an Al-Qaeda related magazine. It's published by Jabhat al-Nusra, the Al-Qaeda faction in Syria, in English. One of the many English language publications put out by these groups. And this article is one which talks about not only using encryption, but also they have created their own direct download app for their members to use. In addition, they also, when they're talking about being contacted, it's Global Islamic Media Front, which was one of the primary groups during the Iraq invasion that was publishing terrorist material. You notice that they say, contact us on Telegram, contact us on SureSpot. Telegram Messenger is just one of many, but one of those that we know is being used. This is actually an actual Telegram feed, and you see on the left side different feeds. On the right you see is Nasher English, which is highlighted at the bottom. This was an ISIS-related feed. They put up some 10 or 11 in different languages. To their credit, Telegram took those off. On the right side you see the actual conversation on the ongoing feed, which also uploads hyperlinked items so you can get the articles directly. This is a statement that they issued shortly after the Paris attacks in November in English and on their other languages. This is other related Telegram feeds that have not been taken off. This is one, the Al-Aqsa recruitment call, or Nafir Al-Aqsa, which is on Telegram. And what's interesting about this, if you go on the right side to the feed there, down at the bottom you see that he's promoting his email Nafir at tutanota.de, which is one of the many encrypted emails apps. So you can get your email right within the app, fully encrypted. So if you go to Tutanota, which you see on the screen here, this is their ad, and it says get your encrypted mailbox for free. Well, once you sign up for that, you can choose your own email address, and essentially within the app you then have your email box, and it's totally encrypted. Another one, this is a guy called Merciful Soldier that's using Kik, advertised it on Twitter. This is an actual conversation with him. He was in Al-Sham or Syria. This is yet another, same thing, using Kik. SureSpot is interesting because they pride themselves on saying that we don't keep any records, we don't keep anything on our server, we don't store your password or anything else. So this is a guy who used the name of Abu al-Waqi, the infamous late American imam who was killed in Yemen, where he advertised his Kik address on Twitter. And then this is an actual conversation that I had with him while he was in Syria. A new magazine talking about these issues. This one's in German. We move on to Twitter, just some of the Twitter. One of the problems that we find with Twitter and that we brought up with them is the fact that they have these accounts which they go down, they're taken down, they come back. This Asfura here has had dozens of accounts, probably 3 or 4 just in the last few days. This is a different number with hers. And promoting the Islamic State. This is another one, Muslima, one of their popular ones. This one is interesting because she's also had dozens. Interestingly enough, she was recently arrested and indicted.
Right on there. So, again, very briefly, what we're talking about so far here is not about hate speech. We're talking about the food chain of international terrorism. That includes command and control, it includes recruitment, it includes all the areas that we're concerned about. And so, just a few years ago, our response, of course, to all quote-unquote hate speech, is more speech. But what we're talking about here is the combination of the most powerful marketing tool ever created, now protected, quote-unquote, by this growing really approach of using encryption for all communications. And to show also that the sophistication of these groups, the people who were involved with them, in terms of understanding the potential of every one of the bells and whistles that the internet community provides, is absolutely stunning. They're running circles around the rest of us. So even in the area of speech, and how do we make sure that young people aren't turned on to this, that's a whole nother conversation.